Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, I'm going to react to the SEC football stadiums. Now, this is going to be an interesting one because it's going to allow me to compare them with the big college football stadiums like the Big House, the Michigan Stadium. I watched a video about 3 or so weeks ago where it showed the Big Ten stadiums. And one of those was like 110,000 capacity, which is just absolutely mind-blowing. It's probably up there with the biggest stadiums on the planet. So it's going to be interesting to see where these stadiums stack up. So let's do it.
In our second installment of the weekly college football series, we've pulled the Southeastern Conference out of the hypothetical hat. And it is a big one. Not the hat, the conference. It features some of college football's most valuable teams. So here are the SEC college football stadiums.
Let's do it.
Bryant-Denny Stadium, the sweet
100,077. That is a big ass stadium. In Alabama, Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Home of the Alabama Crimson Tide. It's the 10th largest stadium.
That's the team that says Roll Tide, right? I think.
Stadium in the world, but it's not even in the top 3 in this conference. That's insane. The exterior is a bit hit and miss. There are sections with a beautiful brick facade, and sections that look a little bit more like a parking garage. The interior is great. There are some sections with bucket seating and small sections of covered seating, and a sizable video board in each corner of the stadium. Davis-Wade Stadium, home to the Mississippi State Bulldogs.
That's interesting. I've not seen a stadium with this much of a gap between the Jumbotron and the stands.
The exterior is somewhat similar to the last one, albeit 3-sided. A beautiful brick facade, a parking garage. It's one of the oldest college football stadiums going round, but I must say it's looking mighty fine for 117 years old.
Wow!
An interesting but completely useless fact about the stadium is that the Bulldogs' original Bulldog mascot, Bully the Bulldog, is buried underneath the field. In case you were wondering, it was a real dog. They didn't bury a costume.
To be fair, for 117 years old, it is a good-looking stadium. That is super old.
Faurot Field at Memorial Stadium, home to the Missouri Tigers. A stadium famous for its Big M, a brand of flavored milk where I'm from, but an iconic symbol of Missouri in Missouri. It was built from leftover rocks after the construction of the stadium. But it's not the only stadium with a Big M, mind you. I wonder who was first. The stadium's south end was recently redeveloped, and now
they've got a lot of space here if they wanted to extend it. Like, they could easily get in another, 20,000 if they were to build a stand here.
It looks much better. And there's even some yellow seating to go with the team's colours. It's a nice, well-rounded stadium, this one. Bit of old, bit of new. Kroger Field, home to the Kentucky Wildcats. For some reason, I hear people say it has one of the worst names for a stadium.
Kroger Field. It's not that bad. I've noticed that a lot of these college stadiums have a similar architecture internally. The way the stands are designed, quite flat as opposed to going up almost vertically.
From what I understand, Kroger is a chain of grocery stores. But just remember, it could be worse. It could be named after Aldi. F*** you, Aldi. You pathetic excuse for a supermarket. And what do you call this? Plagiarism. Get lost. Anyway, sorry for that. The stadium itself it's looking pretty sharp. It has a nice modern exterior, a fairly symmetrical seating layout, and I like how they have those skyboxes in each corner.
How much does it cost to have a skybox seat? Like, is it something that you have to pay for annually, or can you just buy a ticket in a box for one game? Ooh.
Kyle Field, home to the Texas A&M Aggies.
That's a good looking stadium.
They say everything is bigger in Texas, and this conference in...
This stadium is huge! 102,000. It is incredible.
Embodies that saying perfectly, because this is the biggest stadium in the SEC. This one has another stunning brick facade. I know there are a dime a dozen in college football, but this one is especially nice. Not quite Doak Campbell level though, but close. On the inside it's quite spectacular. There's a nice mix of those maroon bucket seats and bleachers, which traditionally would be stood on rather than sat on, but I guess that's against the rules now.
Ooh.
Neyland Stadium, home to the Tennessee Volunteers.
The Tennessee Volunteers? Is that their actual name?
It's a very intriguing looking stadium.
The Volunteers?
Parts of the exterior look excellent. The riverside, however, looks a little scaffoldy. On the inside, it's very monochromatic.
Kind of looks like a Colosseum, like the old Italian Colosseums where the gladiators would fight to the death.
But I think it's one of those stadiums that looks better during the game, when it's filled with fans wearing orange and white. The design is pretty cool as well. You have those typical double-decker stands on the sides of the field, and those double-tiered wraparound semi-circle type stands behind each end zone. Oh, and apparently there's a morgue or something underneath the field, or at least nearby. It's a bit of a secret. Very few people have actually had access to it. Oh. I hear that some people are dying to get in there. Thank you. Jordan-Hare Stadium, home to the Auburn Tigers. It's quite a straightforward stadium, this one.
There's no
extravagant exterior.
I like this exposed section here. Gives these guys a hell of a view, you know, being able to look, you know, out towards the rest of the city.
Or anything like that. And the interior is fairly typical as well. What to say about it? Well, it has a larger capacity than its City of Auburn's population. But that's not uncommon in college football.
That's crazy to me.
Perhaps the most interesting thing about it is that it's the former home of the legendary dual sport athlete BoJack Horseman, who eventually went on to play in both the NFL and MLB, and incredibly became an all-star in both, hang on a second, that can't be right.
Bo Jackson.
Oh, Bo Jackson. Of course, no horse. Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium, home to the Arkansas Razorbacks. The exterior on this one looks fairly modern, with plenty of glass being used. Not bad.
I've noticed that a lot of the stadiums have a similar aesthetic. I'm guessing it's quite a cost-effective way to design a stadium. Like, who pays for the college stadiums? Is it the school? Is it the city or the town? I'd love to know, because here, if a football club wants to build a new stadium, they've got to come up with that money, like 100%, the owners.
On the inside, it's a tale of two end zones. One has 3 tiers of bucket seating, the other has no seats at all. Well, I should say had no seats, because it looks like this now after it was expanded. And I gotta say, it makes a world of difference. Not just to the capacity, but it just ties the whole place together, and it takes it from a good stadium to an elite stadium. Sanford Stadium, home to the Georgia Bulldogs.
I like it. I really like it. It's got more of like a circular sweep upwards as opposed to just being like just flat out there.
The stadium was built in a small valley and actually sits on top of a creek. There's something satisfying about the way it looks. The way it's nestled into that small space, with barely any wiggle room. The most notable feature of the stadium though are those famous hedges that surround the field. They have been there since 1929, but they aren't the original hedges of course. It turns out hedges are not immortal. I think it looks great and I'd like to see more of it. But of course, if anyone else were to
It's a
plant
nice looking
hedges around
stadium.
their
I
field,
like this one.
then they would get called out for copying Georgia. So
Yeah, this is probably my favourite one, to be honest. I just like the way it looks right now. Quite simplistic yet modern.
it's probably not going to happen. Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, home to the Florida Gators of Gatorade fame.
The Gators!
This stadium has a bit of an interesting design. It's not quite a perfect bowl. It's
quite-
more like,
It's quite
I
geometric.
don't know, the way the stands are at sharp angles almost looks like the stadium was designed to fold up after you use it.
Origami.
And I'd imagine if you did fold it up, it would kind of look like a crunch wrap. I really like this stadium, and I think it would look even better if the seating was all blue and orange. But it's getting there.
Yeah, it's very angular. It looks like a hexagon.
And I think everyone should get free Gatorade, because you'll probably be sweating at this place. It is called the Swamp for a reason. Tiger Stadium, home to the LSU Tigers. There are few stadiums in the world that could challenge Tiger Stadium when it comes to an intimidating atmosphere. And it's not hard to see why. Other than the huge capacity, the configuration may have something to do with it. The way that southern end is made up of multiple tiers of very steep seating,
The noise that would come out of this section here. Woo!
allowing the fans to sit right on top of the action, would have the great man BoJack Horseman himself shaking in his boots. Nike, I think they were. I also kinda like how it looks like several different stadiums have been fused together. Vanderbilt Stadium, home to the Vanderbilt Commodores.
Yeah, this is probably the smallest one so far, right? 40,000. Even though 40,000 is still a big stadium, there's stadiums in the Premier League that have 40,000 capacity, so still a fairly large stadium.
There's not much to speak of when it comes to the exterior. There are hits of brick, but the rest is just exposed support beams. Not the prettiest, but I suppose some people would like that raw look. It's a very simple horseshoe-shaped design with bench seating and a small grass berm at one end. There's not too much else I can say. It's simple, but effective, I guess.
Yeah.
Vaught-Hemingway Stadium.
This one's interesting. It kind of looks like, you know, you've got this bit here that's white, you've got this bit here that's grey, or it could be white but because of the angle. Then you've got this red. Kind of looks like, yeah, just a lot of sections have been like just added together.
Stadium, home to the Ole Miss Rebels. It would just look like a fairly typical college stadium if it wasn't for the roof canopies on the east, and in particular the south end of the field. Those sections look great, but they also remind me of an opera box, where the VIPs sit in comfort while the peasants bake in the sun or soak in the rain. Not that it would rain in an opera house, but you know what I mean.
The peasants.
This one even has a funky curved roof, presumably to block the sun from people's eyes. The south end also has a pretty grand facade that looks a lot better than the other sides of the stadium. And finally, Williams-Brice Stadium, home to the South Carolina Gamecocks. I have been known to get my
That name, the Gamecock. I don't want to say it in case you know what I mean.
Carolinas mixed up, so let me just double check. Yep, South Carolina. The stadium goes by the clever nickname The Cockpit, or just Willie Brice. Both nicknames have one thing in common. The stadium is known for having an incredibly loud atmosphere, although to be fair, most in this conference do. And just like La Bombonera in Argentina,
What do you guys think is the best atmosphere? The best atmosphere for a college game? Like, if you had to pick one to like for a foreigner to experience the best of college football, which would you pick? Let me know in the comments.
the stands often sway and vibrate when the crowd is jumping around.
Wow.
This one in particular. It spawned the phrase, "If it ain't swaying, we ain't playing."
Hey.
The stadium itself looks quite modern, and if it had bucket seating, it wouldn't look out of place in the NFL. I think it's that lighting setup that makes it look newer than it is. And those were the Southeastern Conference college football.
Cool. That was fun. If I had to pick my favorite, it's probably got to be the Bulldogs one. I just loved that modern Coliseum aesthetic. Simplistic yet futuristic. I love that sort of stuff. And it was still fairly large. It was like a 90,000 capacity, I think. But yeah, let me know, guys, if you had to pick one college game, one team to go to, one stadium for the best experience, let me know which you would pick. I think college football starts in like, is it September? So like autumn or fall, as you guys call it. I definitely want to be around for it. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.